right. Hey, thank you so much, Zach, for being on the show here. I really appreciate your time, sir. Uh, a lot of people know you in the business, but yeah, just to give you guys some context, I've been following you for so many years prior to when we started making contact and just respect everything you've done for the insurance agency. And I'm really excited to learn today. But yeah, thank you, sir, for being on the show.
No, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, and yeah, you also helped me with some calls and you brought so much value in a very short amount of time. So just appreciate your generosity. But um, founder of JG Group, prior to that, co-founder of G&N Insurance, which is absolutely incredible agency that you built, and we want to get into how you started it and how you sold it too. I think that's going to be an interesting story, and now what you're up to too. But let's just take it all the way from the beginning here. How did you even
Hmm.
get started in insurance? And yeah, just tell us a little bit about yeah your journey here.
Yeah, I've had a blessed upbringing, I would say. And my dad was an entrepreneur. And so my dad early on like really wanted me to take over his financial planning practice. That was like the goal. And when I did a little bit of studying on the financial markets, I was like, that is not for me. I have like, no desire to do it. But I kept telling him I was 100% in, can't wait to take over the family business. And I went to school for risk management insurance, took a couple professional sales courses, ended up taking a job at Liberty Mutual in outside sales in downtown Boston. And I told my dad at that point I just had no interest in being an entrepreneur. But because I thought I had it made. Like I was the top sales rep at Liberty Mutual in the country by ranking for like a couple
Wow.
years in a row. And I was like, this is as good as it gets. There's nothing else to do. We're great. And I went to a sales conference in California, actually,
Oh
your
yeah.
neck of the woods. Yeah. And
Mhm.
we're out there and I was at this conference. It was kind of late at night. It was an awards conference. My girlfriend, now wife, but my girlfriend at the time, and I were there. And actually, the UFC marching band comes on, and they start doing their song and dance on like the thing. And these like 65, 75-year old Liberty Mutual lifetime agents are like, just it was a weird scene. They were like
Mm.
dancing and stuff, and it almost like it felt like a little cultish. And my girlfriend
Mhm.
at the time, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, KG, she says to me, she's like, "Are you really going to be one of these people in 40 years?" And I like had this deep moment where I was like, I can't do this. I cannot be this person. So from then on, I strategized to open up my own shop. I figured the only thing I had to do was just be a little bit better than Liberty Mutual. Found a business partner in Matt Namoli, who was also at Liberty Mutual, who had similar ideas. We started business planning for a year and a half. And when we launched, we really were like, we're just going to be like a little bit better than Liberty Mutual, offer some choice, we'll be fine. We had a business plan that was like 35 pages. It's still in my closet. Never looked at it after I made it. Like, didn't really matter. Like, there's so many strategies out there for opening a business are total BS. They like don't help you whatsoever. Writing a business plan was a great one. If anything, it's a great thing to reference when you're like 15, 20 years in to be like, wow, like I'm so lucky I made it out of that time frame. My business plan is hilarious to look back at. So if you're out there listening to this, like coming up with your business plan on your own right now, take it seriously, get your thoughts on paper. But when you go, just go. Don't worry about it. Start running the race. That business plan is not a reference plan. It's fine. It's a good document. You'll frame it one day. You'll like it.
Yeah, there's just no like there's so many variables. How could you plan, even like 5 years, or even like 1 year in advance, just uh
Yeah.
but
I mean, in basketball, we relate it to like you have these great plans, but then they do a full court press, and you're like, uh-oh, like didn't expect that. So we have to move the ball a little bit, and we have to figure this out. But this perfect play we designed is not going to happen anymore. Didn't expect this. We got a center bringing up the basketball. Didn't expect that happening. And I feel like in business, it's a lot of that. It's like you got a great business plan. If it all works that way, fantastic. I still have not met an entrepreneur that has a business plan that they follow to a T.
yeah.
Just hasn't happened. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun talking with you because yeah, I'm a huge basketball fan too, and following you on Instagram, what you do with your son Mason,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just so many analogies there. But so
Mm.
when you went independent, were you able to sell the Liberty Mutual product, or did you have to start with new carriers?
Eventually, as you can imagine, there was a little bit of a rift between
Mm,
Liberty and
mm,
us, and that's okay. I don't look back at them with any ill will. I understand why they were a little bit harsh in the beginning. I think they're supposed to be harsh. They're a big company, but we opened up with two or three carriers, maybe one state carrier. They're called I don't know, the state brand out here, Mass Fair Plan, and one insurance company called Mopfre, which was Commerce at the time. A couple other carriers sprinkled in, but I'll tell you, the carriers really didn't matter in
mm,
the end. I mean, you need to have good carrier partners, and I think that's very true. I think they down the road, I have a lot of advice for that kind of stuff, for understanding carrier relationships. I think some agents do it better than others to really understand how to play nice in the sandbox and really invest back in your carrier relationships. I think that's tremendously important. And it's not even really necessarily for what you need from them. It's just the right way to do business. You always want to invest in your vendor partners, but we didn't need too many of them. We only needed a couple, and I think we there was too much stress in the beginning on carrier partners.
interesting.
Mm, mm.
So what besides that was the key, you think? Because in the early years, did you guys get off to a good start, or because eventually you could talk about what it ended up being, which is something we want to get to. But how did you get from the start date to when you sold it in 2019?
Yeah, 2010 was hilarious. I mean, when we opened, we our goals for our week of sales was what we thought was pretty lofty. Like we really wanted to do around 50,000 a week in premium. That was what we really wanted to do. And we backed into that. And we always assumed 2 to 3 policies per client. We always assumed certain things. But when we started backing into it, we're like, okay, like this is doable. But what we didn't realize is we wanted staff pretty much right away. I think
Mm,
there's a lot of ways to run a business. Matt and I were from the early on very big delegators. We were very big into things like the Eisenhower matrix and other tools that you can use where the short summary of it is you never want to, never is a strong word. You don't want to delegate what you love doing. You want to delegate the kind of things that you are good at, or you like doing, or you don't like doing. Those are the three things. If you're just good at it, or you kind of like doing it, or you're not good at it, that's the stuff you want to delegate. So for me, one of the things I never wanted to delegate was networking and marketing. I just loved it. I was what I loved to do. I loved to business develop, niche market. I love to come up with different ideas to brand the agency. Selling, I was good at it, but I don't really care. Doesn't really matter. I think there are some people that are better at sales than me, but I think okay. Um, and service, didn't want to do that. Admin stuff, didn't want to do that. Payroll, taxes, all that kind of stuff, health insurance, HR, didn't want to deal with any of that stuff. So we delegated early on and found people to fill those roles as early as possible. We tried never to delegate what our core competencies were.
wow. Did that, did you look for people that fit those roles that you're looking for? Or did sometimes
Yeah,
like when you look for good people, or maybe your partner too, like you guys could overlap on some things that you guys like to do? Like how did you just decide on what roles? Was that an easy process or it took a while?
trial and error,
Yeah.
total trial and error. You'll hear that a lot from me. I think I mean, there are some things we kind of spat about, Matt and I were like, we were unsure who should do what. But in essence, we always kind of came back to having good conversations, open communication. And it always came down to like, forget what you're good at. What do you love to do? Like, that's really what we always came back to. Like, what do you love to do? And for us, what we really tried to do is like make lists of our daily activities. So from the start, you write down everything you do from the gym. I know you're an early gym guy to whatever you do. Write it all down, personal, professional, and you got to figure out like you obviously just you write down the personal, professional mainly just to make sure that the personal is keeping up. You want to make sure that you're doing stuff that you love in your personal time, but From the professional side, you'd be surprised at the amount of things that you're doing that you can make a role for. So, as a for instance, many of the people listening here will probably want to hire a customer service representative at some point, maybe a quoter, maybe someone of that nature, claims specialist. It doesn't matter what the role is. If you write down your daily activities in the early stages, in the first couple of years you're doing this, and you're not doing claims activities, like personally, and nobody at the agency is, but you're writing a role for a claims specialist, good luck, because
Mm.
nobody's going to know how to train that person. Like nobody has done that role. You're not actually good at it. So when we hired inside sales producers, like 3 to 4 years in, just as an example, we had perfected the sales process. We had not perfected it as an inside producer though. So the first or two iterations were terrible. Like the sales process was not accurate. It was not good.
Mhm.
By the third or fourth iteration, we had designed a sales process specifically for inside sales producers. So we understood the sales process, but I didn't understand it when it was just somebody's role per se. So you have to constantly iterate on what you used to do. And then this is just my opinion. I think you have to accept anywhere from like 70 to 120% of what you're at. Meaning if somebody's like 70% of what you were doing, it's fine. Keep training, keep encouraging, keep leading, try to get them to a certain level. So if you're selling 2.5 policies per client, the inside sales team does 1.7, it's okay.
Mm.
Keep training, keep working on it. Don't expect them. But I mean, obviously they could surprise you. They could go to 3.0, but I'm just saying like, don't be surprised if when you give up one of your good stuff, one of your good things that they're like 70% of you. It's okay. It's a training moment. It's not a fireable offense. It's a training moment. And we
Yeah,
constantly remind ourselves that.
it's better than you taking 100% of your time to get, 100% of you. And sometimes, yeah, they could even surpass you. But marketing was something you didn't let go of, and that's your strong suit. And I'm kind of blown away because, I do the paid ads, and um, you were able to build an agency. Sometimes I feel like, how scalable could that be? How many people can you talk to? But then you build a humongous agency of referrals and mortgages and lenders. And I know a lot of agents do that, but not as good as you did. So tell us, how you built your agency off of that, and maybe even give us as far as like, what type of numbers you guys were able to put up and things like that, if you don't mind sharing.
Sure,
Like,
happy to. I want to talk about this, the mindset of that first part, the unscalable. There are so many things that you and I do personally that is never going to be done at scale because it's not really feasible. As a for instance, right now in this phase of life, I make scratch homemade pancakes for my kids every single morning. I'm obsessed with them trying to eat eggs. They don't eat eggs and they don't have enough protein. So I make protein pancakes every single morning for them because it solves a problem for me. Because I'm like, you know what? I can hide the eggs. They won't know it's in there. And like I put a couple of chocolate chips in there and they think it's like the greatest thing in the world. I think they're having chocolate
and,
every morning. And
and
so
by the way, when you said that you always look for things that you like to do in business and you also do it in personal life, I see that in your life. So
yeah, there you
you're doing
go.
you're doing what you love to do. I could tell.
All the time. I love that. I get up early just to do it. I also make pour over coffee every morning for my wife and I. Like I do unscalable things in the morning. I do things that serve others every single morning because I like to do that. So why I bring those two things up is because I could delegate those things. I could automate those things. I know I could. I could buy the pre-made protein waffles and kind of deal with the whole thing. But I prefer to try to do the unscalable for as long as possible. And that served me tremendously in the agency life. So now to back into this, I've never bought an internet lead in my life. I've never shared commission with a referral partner. I've never done like a you refer, I give you X. Um, Now that doesn't make me proud to say that. It's just the reality of life. That's just how I approached it. Okay, that's easy to say. then how do you do it is the next question. Everyone's like, nah, okay, maybe he did that, maybe he didn't. Like, but how do you do that? I'd rather talk there about how we did it. Um, we tried our best to do one of two things: either solve a problem for a referral partner. I'll go over a couple examples, or solve a problem for the client. So a problem for the client can be as simple as I'm buying a home, it's closing on May 1st, I need insurance. They have a deadline, they have a gun to their head, not literal, but they have 5 weeks between now and May 1st to get insurance. To some people, that's not a big deal. They've bought home insurance before. For other people, they've never bought it before. It's actually a pretty big problem. They have no idea what they're doing. So I saw that as a problem. For the mortgage lender, which was our primary referral partner, or the realtor, sometimes the problem was business, like either getting business, running their business, or just like literally just having a partner to talk to about their stresses, about their pain points. The amount of accountability groups I had was in the dozens. I had so many small little meeting groups with different referral partners where I'd get a couple mortgage lenders together who were competitors to just chat. And I'd be in the room. I'd be like the facilitator of this brainstorm. And they would just chat back and forth about what's going on in the mortgage industry. I did that with realtors. I brought realtors in, closing attorneys. We just had we tried to solve real business problems for our referral partners. And the more we solved problems with the client, the referral partners, we just became the person that they trusted. The rates didn't matter. And actually, our service didn't matter too much either, nor did our 24-hour turnaround time or any kind. We tried to perfect all of that, of course. But it was my job to really make sure that the referral partner felt like we were all in on solving problems. And it just became really easy. So
Wow.
yeah, we were known for a lot of things, and there's a lot more I could go into, like the bobblehead campaigns, the parties we threw, our websites, our slick tech, and back in the day. But like ultimately, none of it mattered if we weren't solving problems for either the client or the referral partner.
Yeah, that's really important to figure out what problem you're solving.
Why do you exist?
And
Like that's what we always
mhm.
said. Why you? I say that all the time to whether it be a plumber, you, whomever. Why you? Why do you matter? And if it starts with we've been in business for this long or we provide tremendous service, you haven't answered the question, in my opinion, if you're going this route. Because the consumer is not walking around being like, I wish I could find an insurance agent like Dan who's been around for 3 generations. Like they're not doing that. And they're also, every single insurance agent talks about how they have the best service. You'll only know if they have the best service until you use their product. No one wants to use your product though. So it has to be something different than those two. So if I could stand on a rooftop to all insurance agents, I'd be like, stop talking about your service. Stop talking about when you were founded. Figure out something different. And there's something there, promise you. But you just haven't explored it deep enough.
Yeah, talk about their problems.
Hmm.
Figure out what the
Hmm.
problems are. I think
Yeah.
that's a good way to look at it. Now, how did you decide on your niche of homeowners buying homes? Is
Mm,
was Liberty was that your product when you're selling Liberty? Was that what you're most confident in? Or because there's so many things you could do in insurance, right? And that's
mm.
great that you had that niche and you really focused in on that niche. I think that's something that is very important. But how did you try out all different products first, or how did you run into that? And
Mm.
how hyper focused did you get on that? Did you do a lot of obviously you probably did a lot of cross selling, but did you do any other lines of business that you kind of led with, or just a little bit
Yeah,
about how important about the
we,
niche?
I think everything has to start with the data. And so we looked at the data the first year or two, and we looked at our lead sources and we looked at our closing ratio. Now, Matt and I, yeah, we did a lot of home insurance at Liberty, but we are primarily auto. Like we met with car dealers and whomever, and we understood that was a good lead line. We did tons of community events, of course. Liberty was good at that. And we were out of the Boston area. Liberty's based in Boston. We understood how to meet with employers and talk about things. We tried a lot of things. We tried to open up employer groups out here too, and we were on our own. Didn't
Mm,
work. It just took too long. But we sold life insurance. We tried anything to keep the lights on. But
mhm.
ultimately, I think it was in year one or year two, our marketing message was kind of flawed. We have about 7 million residents in Massachusetts, and we were there to offer Massachusetts residents choice, or whatever we said back then. But it's impossible to matter to 7 million people unless you're like LeBron James or Luka Doncic lately for you guys. But it's impossible to matter to that many people. You just don't. So, I mean, that's why you see Liberty and Farmers like with these very interesting advertising campaigns to the masses, because the masses are about an emu or about sponsoring a football game. Like, so you have to appeal to your niche market. Okay, so we looked at our lead sources, going back around to your question, and we looked and we're like, wow, when it's referred from a mortgage lender, we close at 100%, literally 100. In like the last like 3 to 4 months, we're like, that's, we weren't getting a ton of referrals from mortgage reps. But we just looked at it, we're like, wow, that's pretty interesting. It's like the only lead line we were closing 100%. And the policies were like 2.0 policies per client. We were like, looking at the data, we're like, that's pretty good. So we looked into how many homes were bought in Massachusetts. And I'm glad we did it in that order. So I'll stress this again. We looked at the data based on our analytics, who was closing, what percentages and stuff, and what was a perfect client. Where did they come from? And then after that, we looked at the viable market, as whatever marketers say, the biggest viable market, whatever they might say. It was 50,000, 50 to 65,000. But the beauty of that niche is 60 to 65,000 homes are sold in Massachusetts in a booming market and 50,000 in a recession. So we're like, wow, that's a tight niche. That's like, basically you can market at 55,000 every single year. So we had 55,000 leads possible. And then we backed into it and said, what percent will we have to get from there to be like really successful? And we're like, wow, it's only like a couple percent. It's not that bad. Like how now we're talking about going from 7 million people to getting a couple percent of 55,000. So then it just became a marketing problem. How do we figure that out? So we can go into a lot of different strategies of what we did, but in short summary, we ended around 7% of all homes sold insured or referred to G&N. And that was way higher than I thought we would get. But we ended up on the Inc. 5000 list 3 times, Boston Best Place to Work, cover of Rough Notes, National Insurance Agency of the Year, you name it, we won it. But I didn't realize the snowball effect of getting a couple percentage points of your niche. So to wrap this in a bow before we kind of move on from here, if I went around to some of your agents and said, hey, I think you could get like 3 to 4% of this niche market, they'd probably be like, that sounds like a waste of time. 3 to 4%, like that's it? Like that's all you want to do? Whereas if you actually look at what 3 to 4% of a real niche market is, you would take that all day long. You'd be like, I would sign me up. I don't even care. As long as it's a viable market, that's great. So before you look into the percentage amount that you need, look into like your data, what closes, then look into the market, and then look at what you need. It's just a math problem.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a great story of
Mm,
how you broke that down.
mm.
That brought a lot of value, Zach. So I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
no problem. No
You
problem.
know, once you found out that was a niche, did you just went hyper focus on that? All your
That's
marketing effort was just that?
that's
Because
it.
you just thought, hey, that 2% could mean so much that gets you excited of like this is worth the battle here, or really dominating this not dominating, but yeah, focusing on this market.
That's
And
it.
yeah,
I mean,
eventually.
you hit it. You hit it. I mean, we didn't do any commercial insurance, none. We did habitational commercial. So if somebody
Mhm,
owned like a 6 unit, that's fine. But again, it
mhm,
had to be referred from a realtor. So it's like our
mhm.
niche part. We didn't insure realtors. We didn't like meaning their practice. We didn't do errors and emissions. We didn't do any of that stuff. Commercial trucking. We did a little commercial auto because some realtors had it, whatever. But it was more business use from a personal. We didn't do anything. But when a home was referred, we tried to insure the auto, home, umbrella, flood, and we can get into that. But we tried to sell 4 policies per lead. So I'll do some quick math with you. And this is another like takeaway from your agents per se on like their own success level based on policies per client. I hear policies per client talked about a lot in the agency world. I love that. I'm glad it's a focus. You want to do more with less, however you want to say it. But what we always try to look at is we should have more than one policy per lead. So break this down. If you get 1,000 leads in a given year, if you close half of them, some people would say that's bad. Some people would be like, oh, you got to aim for a higher closing percentage. Some people, whatever, it doesn't matter. But if you get 2 policies per client, you have 1,000 policies for 1,000 leads.
Hmm.
Not so bad.
You can't
Not
even
so,
counting the ones you didn't sell.
yeah, it's not so bad. Like,
Mhm.
and the ones you didn't sell, you have X dating programs, you have marketing forever. You can figure that out yourself. But if you can get to that 1-to-1 ratio and above, I think that you can be successful in any market. I think you really can. And so we were trying to get 6 to 7,000 leads per year. That was our goal. Okay. So if you're getting one policy per lead, I don't really care what the closing percentage is, as long as we end up around 67,000 policies and beyond. I'm in a good spot. So some years our closing ratio is pretty high, and then we would grind them up policies per client. We'd be like, we're not like really spending enough time with these people to really, like, I don't want a 60% closing ratio with one policy per client. I don't want that. I'd rather 50% or 40% closing with 2.5 policies per client. I'd rather that. Sign me up. It's easier on the service team. It's easier on the renewal team. It's easier on everybody.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow. And what's your thoughts on the ROI of the lead because the referral base it's so good, but is there a lot to go into holding those, events and things like that? Is that
Mm-hmm.
obviously, you know, what type of like investment do you think is necessary? Obviously time-wise, but financially too.
Hmm. It's a really good
And
question. I tried to and when I was really getting into the data, I tried to do an ROI of a referral partner. So what I would try to do is look at our top 20% that drove 80% of the revenue. And I would say, like, what is this referral partner worth? And let's just say Dan, the mortgage lender, was contributed 20,000 in revenue, just a nice round number. If you reached out to me and said, hey, I'm doing this event and I need $1,000, you can be the insurance sponsor. Um, that's great. We might say yes, because that's a really small percentage of the actual revenue you brought to the agency. But a newer referral partner that we really don't even have any data on would be an instant no. I have no. It's not that, and we wouldn't phrase it as like you haven't made us any money, but like we actually don't have money to contribute. We don't. But you know what? Let's start a relationship. Let's keep it going. And I can have you on my podcast. I can brand you. I can put you on our social media. I can send a newsletter about you. There's so much I can do, but I can't physically just give you money. I can't do that. That's part one. Part two is when you did give money, then you have to have a strategy. If we ever gave money to a referral partner for an event, we had to be there. And I
mm,
don't even think it's a business development rep. I think it's Matt or I had to be there. One of the reasons we had to be there is I wanted to network all over that place. I don't want to grab the mic and say, this is Zach, I'm an insurance agent. I don't want to be on the stage. This is your event. I don't need to do that. I want to network with everybody there. So if you're a mortgage lender and you're putting on an event where you have some serious money behind it, there's got to be some real good realtors there. I'm there. I'm 100% there. I can't wait to be there. And if you're a realtor throwing an event for first time home buyers, maybe not,
mhm.
because I don't really need to be there. Um, I think that's fine. I'd rather just contribute $250 and say have a good lunch. So you really have to break that down to see where you want to be.
A lot of strategy behind that side of
Hmm.
the marketing too. All right. Well,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit how you won one of the best places to work in Boston. I mean, that is something when I was following you, I was like, wow, staff looked super happy. I think I took one of your like things like win of the week, and I was like, oh, that
Yeah.
sounds cool. Like keep the meetings positive. Started off with like sharing the weekly wins and stuff like that. But you
Mhm.
just had and all that content you were putting out there, it just seemed like a great place to work, and honestly, that inspired me.
Mhm.
So. I mean, what are your strategies there? I mean, we
Yeah,
could
I
talk
think
about this for a long time, but this is a very interesting subject for me.
yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. I think you have to meet people where they're at. part one. You have to understand your personal workforce. So what worked for me before I get into it, it might not work for you. But we tried to hire people that were moms or dads. The strategy behind that is it's a career, not a job. That's what we were hoping for. We were hoping for people that we could love on. And what I mean by that is we had very flexible work hours. What we used to do is we used to be like, Dan, if you need 2 hours for a pediatric appointment or something with your kids, just make up the 2 hours same week. We don't dock you. No PTO. So moms and dads didn't have to use this unnecessary half day ever with us. And that was super key. I mean, when you have a young kid, there's so many doctor's appointments. There's so many variables. There's so many times you have to go home and just relieve the dad or relieve the mom or whatever. So we just said, you know what? Make it up same week. We're good. And if it's on a Friday, we just let you make it up next week. No big deal. So that was part one, is we were very flexible with that part. Part two is we always believed in remote work. Now, we had a fun, vibrant office, but we also understood if you need to work from home, it's cool. It's cool by me. People
Oh, this
didn't
is
really
way
take
before
it
COVID.
way before COVID. When COVID hit, it didn't really matter to us. But we were 1 day mandatory a week. People usually came a lot more than that. But that day that we had a mandatory day was your office team's day. And so typically service picked Tuesday, Thursday, sales picked Monday, Wednesday. And then we tried to always have people in on Friday, like the whole team. And then when we did that, we would do like a champagne Friday. So at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, I forget exactly what time, we would open up a bottle of champagne, just chat about what we're doing on the weekend. That was it. And we just play Bob Marley and just hang out, turn the phones off. And that was honestly, like, when Matt and I did that, it was cringeworthy. When Matt and I did that, like, we stayed in the office, everybody else went outside and drank. And it's kind of funny to think back on now because I don't even drink anymore. But back then, like, I remember we had a teammate come in our office and she was like, this is kind of weird that we're like all out there, like drinking, hanging out. Like the boss is like grinding away. Like, you just want to have a glass with us? And from then on, we never skipped it because we realized, like, it kind of feels weird. It's like, you ever have that friend who, like, you have your kids or whatever, and you have like cake for the party, and like you're serving cake to everybody, but you won't eat it. You're like, it's kind of weird. Like, have a slice of cake, like have a bite. You know what I mean? It's not gonna kill you. It's a birthday party, And so I became the person who was like, I'm gonna have a slice of cake, I'm gonna have the drink of my team, and I'm just gonna be there. And if I have to stay till 6:30 because I'm hanging out, it's fine. I don't want to ever appear well, I obviously violated my own rule plenty of times, but I didn't want to appear like it was like, oh, when is this ending so I can get back to work? And I think too many leaders do that, where they want to be the fun boss. They want to be the boss that says you can have a relaxing time. But when they're doing it, they're just sitting on their phone or waiting for the next day to be over. Can't do that. So that was a long-winded answer, but I just think that the common advice is to be where your feet are, but I think
Hmm.
there's more to it than that.
Yeah, your presence really matters.
Mhm.
And yeah, being present with them.
Yeah, being
Yeah.
present with them when they want you there, not when you want them there. I
Mm.
think it's both ways. I mean, yes, I know you're going to be present in your monthly sales presentation because it's your presentation. Obviously, you're going to be present. You're proud of your results. You're maybe giving out some trophies and some stuff. Great. But when we ask, like, what was the win of this last week? Like, give me a personal W. Like, what happened? Did you go for some walks? Like, what'd you do? Like, when the answers were given, I wasn't checking my phone. I was like, Matt and I would be writing down notes, like being like, all right, how do we love on Dan? How do we get some gifts for Dan? Like, okay, Dan, what if Dan's like best things was he saw the newest Avenger movie? Okay, I'll write a note on that. I'm just curious, how can I gift him something on that, like down the road? Is there anything Avenger related that I can like follow up on? Like, as for you, it's pretty obvious you love sneakers. Like, you wouldn't be a hard guy to gift. You know what I mean? Like, you can figure stuff out like that. You can do that, but with the wins, I would say to be the best place to work for, you have to really know what people obsess over. You really do. And if
Mm.
you can not buy them stuff, but if you can show up where that stuff matters, then you're gonna win long term.
Yeah, I mean, just sounds like you just cared.
Try to.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I
Well,
mean, think about it. I mean, go back to my original comments. They're doing the stuff that I hate doing. It's
mm.
not low level stuff at the agency. I just wasn't good at it. I couldn't do it. I wasn't built for that stuff. It's just like it's not a big focus. That's not to say I didn't find it important. I just wasn't good at it. I didn't love it. So when we hired people, we tried to make sure the job you're going into, do you really love helping people? Because you're in a service role here. If like when you go to a restaurant, are you an over tipper or are you an under tipper? What kind of person are you? Like, do you actually? So some of our service people, when we ask those questions, it's just a random thing, they would be like, yeah, I always give 20% no matter what, but I really look forward to see if I can give 22 to 25. Now, it's not rich, but they're just saying, you know what, when I go out, like it's standard. Like I respect those people no matter what, and hopefully I can give them more. And that's the kind of person you'd want in service because you're like, you know what, okay, that person has respect for the other role. Another thing we used to ask, is one of my all-time favorite answers from my teammate Sandy. We asked like, hey, it's a typical Sunday. What's your day? What's your day like? Whatever. Sandy gave us answer, blew our socks off. She's like, well, on Sundays I have an open door policy. What that means is I just do a ton of cooking, and whoever from the town wants to come by and show up, you're welcome to have food, hang out, whatever. And we're like, no way. Like you do that? And she's like, oh yeah, absolutely. And that is her. That really is her. She really just cooks and opens the door and says, whoever wants to come by, come by. Sandy eventually became our service manager. She was hired as an admin and eventually became our service manager just because she was a tremendous servant of people. She was amazing. But imagine you hear that this person has an open door policy on a weekend, and now she is the first person at your agency that anybody sees when they walk in. I mean, the best possible position for her. Like carrier reps or clients, when they came in, they were blown away at her greeting. Like she was just like jumping out of the seat, couldn't wait to hug them. Thank you so much for coming by. And that is not what you typically see in an insurance agency.
Those are not typical interview questions, so thanks for sharing that. What do you do on a typical Sunday, and how much do you tip? It seems
Yeah,
random, but hey, you can
I
learn a lot about them.
I have a lot of weird interview questions. I could go on for that for hours. But I mean, one of my other, I'll give you two other ones that I think everyone should ask. One thing you should ask is who would follow you here? And I mean
Mm.
that, like, who would follow you here? You come work here, who would be following you? So too many Dans and Zacks ask, like, do you know anybody who would want to work here too, or stuff like that? No, 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 that's not the right way to ask it. Who would follow you here? And you can, because they might say, oh, like I work at a great team with Dan and Zach, and like we're super close together. I'm sure when I leave, like they'll wonder why I left. It's a good question to know. It's a good thing to know. They better have somebody that would follow them there. Kind of weird if not. Another thing that we used to ask, because it's just be curious. Like it's the last day of kindergarten, and you have a chance to walk home with a child you once were. What would you say to him?
Oh, that's a deep one.
It's a deep one, but you want
Hmm.
people on your team that can actually have a conversation where it's not like super scripted and prepared. I
Hmm.
want people when you hit them with a right hook with like a deep thought question, do they take a second and think about it and give you an honest answer? Or do they just say, oh, invest in Apple? It's like, okay. You're gonna tell you're gonna tell a kindergarten you to invest in Apple? Like, thanks. Thanks for the answer. Like, you gotta get more out of it.
Yeah, and also it shows if they're interesting or not too, because I think that's a big part of the job is like you have to talk to somebody. You'd rather talk to somebody interesting, you know. So it's all a communication
Especially
game. That's really all we
Yeah,
do.
especially if you're going to ask them on a week-to-week basis, what's a personal win? If you're going to develop an agency where you're like, what's a personal win? Well, you better hire people that have a personality, or else this is going to be
Mhm.
a really, really boring life at work. Someone's
That's
going to
kind
be
of
like,
like,
yeah, go ahead, sorry. Yeah,
oh no, I was just gonna say that's like half the challenge of our business is trying to make it fun because it's insurance,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
not trying to make it not boring.
yeah, I mean, you could ask somebody like, would you say you're more or less creative than the average person? And give me an example why. I mean, it's a serious question. Like, if you're more creative, tell me why. Tell me
Yeah.
when. Tell me how. Um, and another thing we would ask is like, what's it like to work with you? And I really wanted to know because I'm going to be working with you. What's it
Hmm.
like? And a lot of times they would ask me the question back, and I think that's a really great way to ask your boss what it's like to work with you. And
Yeah.
I would want to let them know, here's where I'm strong and here's definitely where I'm weak. And I want you to know that up front because if you work for me, I'm going to be weak exactly where I think I
Yeah.
am.
Well,
I'm pretty
that's
sure. Yeah, pretty sure I know.
it's good to be transparent with each other. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, well, the culture was amazing, and that was an incredible run you went on. Now, as you transitioned, judging off like how you prepared to go start your own shop, I'm not sure, so I'll just ask you, how long did the idea creep in for? Was it from day one or after several years or and then how just anything you could share about that process there?
Like when we decided to sell, is that what you're saying? Like when
Hmm.
we, yeah. Uh, it, I mean, it's not the best story in the world to tell, but it's just the reality of life. Is my dad had cancer for a long time, and after 22 years, he succumbed to cancer. He died, and the last 2 years of his life, I had to help him sell his business, his financial planning practice. And when it sold for like 400 to 500 thousand, which some people would consider a victory. That's great and good, but if any of your listeners have a loved one that's gone through cancer, like that 400 to 500 thousand, it's gone. Like the health care at the end is so expensive. So it all goes to your nurses and all the other stuff. Health insurance is another thing to talk about in another podcast, maybe with Joe Rogan. But I digress. So it's gone. But so on his deathbed, he was, pretty sad. He was like, this sucks. I had a business for 40 plus years and I don't get to transfer any wealth to my kids. Like that really sucks. Now, fortunately, my sisters and I didn't like weren't just sitting there waiting for his money when he died. But, I understood the regret. And during that time, I was talking to Matt and I was like, this process really sucks. We should probably get evaluated. Matt and I always had an idea that we are going to grow it as fast as possible for as long as possible and sell it. We always wanted to. But this kind of hit me right between the eyes is like probably a good time to get evaluated and take a look at it. So Matt and I did. And, you know, the valuation we got was great. We thought that they'd take it to market just to see if maybe we could get that. We ended up getting 1.75 of the valuation that the brokers thought we would get, like 1.75 on top. So we are like,
Huh.
sign me up. It wasn't a hard decision. And we ended up selling 3 months before COVID broke out. So that was a pretty good decision. Got pretty lucky with timing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry to hear about your dad.
Yeah. Thank
Um,
you.
but yeah, that is wow. A,
I, I think you like
something that
when you look at it, when you look back at it, um, I think when you start a business, like the successful business you have and other people listening, I don't think you should start with an exit plan because I don't know. It seems like a weird thing to start and be like, I'm going to sell it when it achieves X because it's a ton of fun to grow a business. It's a ton of fun. I mean, right now I'm on my fourth business. I love growing businesses. I think that they're really fun. But I also think that you're a little naive to assume that you're going to pass it on. Because it's like I live in a house here and I think it's a great house, but it's kind of weird to think my kids are going to grow up in the same town that I'm in. Like, there's a lot of towns out there. There's a lot of things to do. And with technology and AI and everything else coming out, it's a little naive to think that your kids in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years are just going to take over the family agency. So it's it's much smarter to get evaluated to see where you're at, where there are a lot of great professionals out there. Smart to get evaluated to see where you're at. And also, they're like a doctor. They'll tell you where you're inefficient and they'll give you some industry standards and be like, Dan, you have great policies per client, but I don't know, maybe I'll just make this up. Maybe your profit's not to a farmer's industry average. And maybe the farmer's insurance reps are telling you you're great, but the person who's going to sell your agency says you got some work to do. I don't know. But the person who's selling your insurance agency, a broker, I would always recommend going through a broker. But those people are like a really good realtor, in my opinion. They're going to tell you, hey, the house is phenomenal, but it's only going to sell for X. Or they're going to say, the house is in such a desirable neighborhood, you can't believe what this is going to sell for. You want to be the desirable neighborhood, obviously. That's what you want to do. So, in my opinion, that's multiple policies per client. That's niche marketing. That's writing very predictable business that's profitable. And people that buy businesses love those kind of businesses because they're very easy to understand.
Yeah, or they may tell you, hey, your house is great, but you just have to fix this one area.
Yeah, we do the kitchen. Okay, no problem. Oh, you can choose to do that or not to do that. You know.
Now, from a buyer's perspective, did they worry that, hey, the if the marketing, founder, the guy who was generating the marketing is gone, like, will we still generate the same amount of business?
Well,
Or was it on,
uh, we had a
were
contract to
there,
say like we were incentivized to stay. Let's put it that way.
okay, gotcha, gotcha.
There's earnouts. We had two earnouts for two different time periods, and ultimately you can choose to stay or not. I mean, that's up to you. Matt and I ended up staying for about I don't know 4 years or so, and whatever amount of years it was, and that was good enough. So I
Mhm.
think the company we sold to, they're not bad people. Like I think they're trying to do the best thing, but they acquire a lot of insurance agencies, and I think that most companies that sell what they try to do is they try to make all insurance agencies look and feel the same because
Mhm.
it's their brand. Okay.
Mhm.
They're not going to have a Dan and a Zach and be like, Dan, you're perfect. Zach, you're perfect. Go operate independently. Just go do your thing. We'll just change the checking account. It's not how it works. That's not how it works. So I was a little naive at that. That caused a little bit of friction. But it was my choice to sell. So it's not like a sad story. Um, I get a lot of questions like, would you do it again? Yes. Yes, I would. And the great thing about thinking that way is I don't have another choice. I can't redo it. So yes, I would do it again. I would happily sell the exact same day I did. I have no regrets. It was the right decision for me, but it might be the wrong decision for somebody else.
Yeah, and now you're in are you're in consulting. Is it mostly
Mhm.
insurance agents or is it all types of professions? I know.
Yeah, it's a couple different. I have a couple different professions, but I think because of my past, I think about 70% of my clients are in the insurance space. Um, I advise a cannabis company. I advise a couple other companies in different realms where I'm really trying to help businesses get clear on what's not working and show them how to fix it. That's really how I kind of define it. Most of the time, I find business owners and leaders are working really hard but they're focusing on the wrong things. So I try to ask the right questions and help them see the real problem, and then give them a game plan of how to solve it and stay with them step by step. So obviously that's a pretty high intense role. Like it's not just like, hey Dan, I wrote this PDF, go follow it. I've seen that kind of coaching. I prefer uh, weekly on sites or weekly calls or a lot more high touch, however you want to phrase it, coaching. So I don't have many clients for that reason, is because I really like to be heavily involved. I also do some fractional coaching where I just do some one-off calls for people who just need help. And then lastly, I just have a newsletter that I send out to people on a regular basis to kind of just give them insights, even if they can't afford coaching, but they just want some help. So those are the three ways people really can get involved with me.
Yeah. Well, we'll put some links in the description there, but yeah, I
Mm,
do remember reaching out to you, and I think the problem at that time was comp plan,
mm.
because I wasn't having that great of a year, and you definitely gave me some insights and broke down some tier options, and you may not even remember now, but that how to break it to the team, we talked about that.
Mm.
So that is something that really helped me out. So I really appreciate you for helping, bringing those insights and your experience uh, really helped me out at that time.
Yeah, I mean that's what I love to do. Like I think when you have your first business, hopefully all of you have many businesses, but when you have your first business, I think that you're just so focused on achieving personal success. Now, at some point, it transfers to team success and leadership and a lot of other things, but you like really want that personal success. Maybe not you specifically, but the person with the
Oh
business.
yeah, I get it.
And when you achieve success, like I have, then you're like, okay, I really want significance. And because when you achieve significance is when you help other people be successful for how their version is. And I remember Lou Holtz said that and it hit me right in the head. I was like, that's exactly what I want. And so you hinted at it earlier. I do a ton of coaching for basketball. I do a lot of youth coaching. Um, I have a half court in my backyard here where anyone from town can come on in and I'll give them coaching. We'll do some strategy stuff. I mean, I love it. And I've never charged for coaching. I don't do that for like basketball. I love it. And I think if you go back and listen to this podcast, you'll find that one of the secrets to my personal success is I only focus on things that I love doing. And I try to do what I love to do as much as possible. And I can choose to charge for it or not charge for it based on what my personal income goals are. But if you could create a life where you only do what you love, I mean, isn't that beautiful? I mean, that's what I want to do. So yeah, I have six basketballs right there. I mean, basketball, I have diagrams over there. My son this morning, he gave me, I don't even know if I had, yeah, I have this. My son gave me a practice plan this morning about what he wants to do for next season. Like my basketball is just everywhere in my life, and I love it. I can't wait to get to it whenever I can.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. Yeah, well, you're definitely winning the game of life, to be able to do what you like. That is like the holy grail, like you get to wake up and do exactly what you like, business-wise and in the personal life.
Hmm.
So that is
If you
something
can,
that
if you can design it, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. I think it's not practical advice to the person just starting. But
mhm,
what is practical is to never delegate what you love to do. I think
mhm.
there are some entrepreneurs who love selling. They need to find aspects of their day where they're selling them. They have to. I'm not saying to the client, it can be anywhere really, but you have to keep sales in your lifestyle. There are some entrepreneurs that cannot wait to lead. They can't wait to build teams. They can't wait to do all this kind of stuff. Get off the phone then. Stop selling as quick as possible. You have to really, you don't need strength finder or any of these kind of tests. You should know. Like, and if you
Mhm.
don't know, go ask your spouse, go ask your teammates. Like, when am I like most excited? When do I have an extra pep in your step? And they'll be like, oh, when you're doing this. And you're like, okay, yeah, thought so. Because I knew very early on if I had to make a claims phone call or if I had
Mhm.
to like do SOPs for service or analyze KPIs for service, or if I had to do that for marketing or sales, if I flipped a coin and there was a heads for sales and a tails for service, I know which one I was rooting for. And I think that's kind of the ultimate thing. If you flip a coin and you got a one or a two, like you know which side you're rooting for. Do that.
Yeah. And usually what you like is what you're going to be really good at too. What you love is what you're going to be good at.
Most
So that's
times, most times, I think it's what you like. I like that you changed it there. Too often we're in the like zone. We need
mm,
to be in the love zone. Like, what do we really love to do? Um, and it's not practical advice when you're just starting, but once you kind of get towards the hiring process, if you find that you're hiring people and you're constantly doing things you like, not you love, you've made the wrong hires. You need to hire people that do things that you like and don't like doing. That way you can focus on what you love doing.
yeah, and hopefully they love what they're going to be doing too. So putting them in positions that they could do it. Yeah, because that's kind of like the competitive advantage. Like if you love somebody, you're gonna care and try harder and put more effort than other people that just like it.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. We tried to have inside sales producers that love to sell, and we didn't have to make hours when that was the case because if they had to get an extra half hour work done, I know they'd get it done. I don't have to worry about when they're coming in or when they're leaving. It's just, yeah, the work part of it I didn't care about. There was obviously tons of training. There was obviously tons of sales call review and all that other jazz. That's really, really super duper important. But the effort is nothing I had to worry about.
Nice.
Mm.
Yeah, Zach, this has been great. Maybe a couple random questions,
Hit me.
just because this is kind of on my radar right now. And you talked about data a little bit, but what's the underrated metric that people, or you could go super important metric that is like really high, and what's one that's maybe underrated that insurance agency owners should be looking at?
It's a good question. Hopefully, I'll give you one here that people haven't talked about before. I mean, to go back to marketing and niche development, I would say to try a metric you should be focused on is to try to get 3 meetings from every 1 meeting you get. So everybody focuses on
Mhm.
policies per client. I think that's important. But if Dan, the mortgage lender, if I'm meeting with Dan, he's a mortgage lender, I want to get 3 meetings off that 1 meeting. That's my metric that I really focus on. And if you focus
Hmm.
on that, instead of like, is Dan, everyone focuses, will Dan refer me or whatever? No, I hope that happens for you. But the ultimate win is that I get 3 meetings. So Dan's a mortgage lender. Maybe I want to meet with a realtor he knows. Maybe I want to meet with 2 realtors he knows. Maybe I want to meet with a financial advisor he knows. You got to get meetings off the meetings. And if you keep doing that, you'll never not have meetings. If your only goal is to get meetings off the meeting, you'll never run out of meetings. So that's a metric you should focus on. Get three
Hmm.
meetings from every meeting. Um, a metric that people, I kind that was kind of not focused on, but I would say if you're reviewing phone calls, I think a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are probably in some kind of sales management, sales leadership kind of role, I would imagine. I think that they should be looking into the phone calls if we're asking smart questions, if we're asking clarifying questions. Did they have follow up questions, or are they only asking questions that are based on the house, the car, and are they only explaining about the insurance? And what I mean by that is ultimately in a good sales phone call, Dan or Zach, the client, is going to reveal a pain point. Are they jotting down a pain point or are they asking a smart question off of it? And a simple smart question is like, if Dan's like, yeah, I'm calling you because my rate went up $2,000. Okay. You could say, oh, that sucks. Like, I hope we can reduce the price. Like, that's what a typical sales agent would say. Oh, that's too bad. Right. No, the question is like, oh man, like your rate went up $2,000. Like, how does that make you feel? You got to ask some kind of question off of that. You got to ask some kind of question off
Hmm.
of that. You can't just be like, we'll do better.
Hmm.
Maybe a way different way to phrase it is ask questions to exacerbate the pain. Ask
Yep.
questions to make them explain the pain that they're currently in.
Emphasize or even exaggerate the pain, because the more pain, the more action they take. It's an emotional game of sales. So if you could get them riled up, that's the best.
Oh, I
Oh,
love
how
it.
long?
Yeah.
How long have you been
Yeah.
with them? Like, oh, I can't believe they did that. Like,
My
uh,
son hates it when we talk about I try not to talk about the games on the car ride home from basketball. My son hates it when I go down this alley because he knows me so well. When I go down this alley of exacerbating the pain that he went through, I'm like, so what's it like when you like because he's smaller. It's like, what's it like when you drive down the lane? There's like two centers, two forwards that come at you in the middle. Like, how's that feel? He's like, shut up, dad. Like, come on, tell me about the pain. Like, let's not do that again. Like, but he knows what's going on. Uh,
he's like, I got it,
yeah.
Dad. I got to work on my floater.
Yeah. He's like, I got to work on my floater. I got to get rid of the ball quicker. I understand. I know what you're saying. Play off 2 feet. Thanks. Say it again, Dad. But, but yeah, I think Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead.
I was thinking maybe ask going over one more. Um,
Mhm.
I think the thing that I wish people would do in sales as well is just to be interested and don't worry about being polished. It goes back to the asking smarter questions, but I think too many people have sales scripts, which are great. I think sales guidance, one pagers, if then, awesome, really good stuff. But the best sales reps I know are interested. They're very interested in the client. So, as a for instance, if someone's buying a home, how long were you looking? You chose a really great neighborhood. What other neighborhoods were you looking at, or was this the only one? How did you pick this neighborhood? I mean, you're not from here. What made you be interested sincerely? And you're going to find that the client is going to talk so much about the great decision they made that the sale is going to become easy because they feel like they're just talking to a buddy. Whereas if you go and they say, like, I'm moving to Los Angeles, and you're like, okay, what's the zip code? So, oh man, you've missed an opportunity there. No,
Mm.
no, no, we don't need the zip code yet. We don't need that zip code. Why don't you ask a question first? Ask a
Yeah,
good
the
question.
more, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more interested you are, that's also a way to find some pain points too. And also with the home or car situation too. If you get them to talk about how much they love their home, then you're actually building value of what you're offering. Like you love this home, right? So like the price doesn't seem that big anymore because it's
Mhm.
like how much they love their home and they love talking about, if they're buying a house and that's really, something they're proud about. So the more they can
And
feel good
you'll
about it.
you'll mess up this all the time too, but I have I've had sales calls back in the day when I was just like, wow, it's like, what a kitchen. It's like, what a great job. And like, I'm asking them about the kitchen. And then the client will be like, yeah, we're going to rip that thing out. Like that, we're going to redo the kitchen. And I'm like, oh, God, I did not ask this good question there. I was just making a comment. There's a big difference. So you'll get better at asking questions, not making comments. Like, you'll be like, oh, wow, what a great backyard. Like, do you have a dog? The person's like, I hate dogs. Like, great, awesome. Okay, that was a bad question. Like you'll keep refining it until you find the right way to be interested. Um, that's you'll find your way, but ultimately it's kind of fun to trip over yourself in that way.
Yeah, like you said, trial and error. But yeah, sometimes we sell too much just transactional auto insurance. It's like high volume, we have to sell a lot. So sometimes I feel like my sales agents are so much in a rush. It's like, hey, just ask something that has nothing to do with insurance at least once, you know, at least once a conversation, or just show that you're interested. It's like it just seems like you just want to get the sale, and that's not a good way to have a conversation. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, definitely that's a good feedback that I want to share with my team.
Yeah. And for cars, it's a little harder. But again, you want to find out what made them make the decision. If they buy a Nissan Altima or a Tesla or a Rivian or I don't know, a Bentley, like there's a story behind every single vehicle they buy. There's a reason they bought the vehicle. Sometimes it can be like, I need the cheapest car I could find that can handle the commute. Okay, how far is your commute? Where are you going to? Like, what do you do? Well, instead of saying, what do you do for work? Like, what's the commute like? Do you listen to podcasts on the way? Like, what are we working with here? Have a conversation, be generally interested. And if you can if you can ask follow-up questions that aren't annoying, that are like you actually care, and you actually just want to have a conversation with the person, that's you're delaying talking about insurance for as long as possible while getting information you need. Because if
Mhm.
somebody says I'm driving, 100 miles to and from work every day, you don't have to ask about a low mileage discount. You've already got the
Mhm.
answer. You don't have to ask these kind of silly questions. How many miles do you think you drive a year? It's like, no, you don't have to ask that. You can calculate that out with a question. You can do your own math.
Yeah, and the more that you get them to talk too, and then it's an opportunity for you to find a connection too, and that always helps. Where you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
me too, and then that just makes it. Or if you find an opportunity to be funny, that's even harder. But that works wonders for the closing ratio too.
oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I try to find out what they're interested in real fast so I can try to either be relatable or ask questions about that. Um, as a, for instance, I remember one of my clients early on uh, said that he didn't need some kind of protection. I forget what I was selling. It was something around like fine arts or something. It was a nice house. So I was asking him really briefly about he had what he had that whatever. And he was like, oh, I don't need that. I know I don't need that because I store everything in the vault. Now, naturally, my follow-up question was like something along the lines of like, well, is the vault in your house? Is it like a bank vault? Like what, he goes, oh, I stored at this bank. It's, valuable stuff. And so we ended up getting into a conversation about it because I was genuinely curious. I was like, okay, now I got to know, like, is it like the original signed Declaration of Independence? What are we talking about here? Like, what do you have that turns out he's like the largest baseball card collector in a certain year in the world. And he has like 7 or 10 million dollars worth of baseball cards. And I was like, that is fascinating. So we had a whole conversation about it. While I was on the phone with him, he's sending me pictures of the cards he has. I didn't have to sell on price at that point. That sale is done. Like he's not texting random insurance agents pictures of his cards. Like he's actually excited to show me. I don't know who this baseball. I don't watch baseball. I don't know who this baseball player is. But I'm like, okay, he's a 1918 official one of one baseball card for someone I've never seen before. But here we are, and we're having a conversation.
Yeah, and not only will we probably get that sale, but he's also not gonna switch. He's not gonna cancel on you for $100.
No, but that policy was about 30 grand. So he
Uh,
didn't switch. But how are you going to get that 30 grand account? Are you going to tell him to increase his deductible to lower his insurance? Or are you going to get really interested in where he flies his freak flag? I would recommend you get really interested.
wow, that's great advice there.
Hmm.
That's really great advice. Sometimes we get kind of lost in the metrics, and that's important too. But it's just all about building that human connection. That's kind of what we
Yeah, I
do
mean,
in this
you
business.
don't know if that matters to him. If you increase the deductible and save him $1,000, you have no idea if that matters to a rich person. No idea. Um, there are a lot of wealthy people who try to pay a lot in insurance to reduce their total cost.
Hmm.
There's a lot of wealthy people that do some weird stuff. Um, and there's a lot of wealthy people that like to brag about how much they pay in home insurance, believe it or not. Like they do some weird stuff. So you don't necessarily have to lower their insurance premium. Sometimes you just got to stroke their ego.
Yep, and really find out what they want, and that's
Mm,
how where being interested helps. You can get
mm,
that information.
hmm.
All
Yeah.
right, Zach. Well, yeah, thank you so much for your time, man. This has been super valuable. Um, Before I let you go, what type of clients is like the perfect ones for you? As I know, insurance agents, owners watch this, but does it matter? Like, what stage of their career they're in, or
No, I would
captive,
say
independent?
no. For now, I would say you can go to you can link it, but you can go to my website at zackgould.com. It's Zach with a K, ZACK Gould, GOULD.com. For people that just want to find out about what I'm working on, just sign up for the newsletter. There's gonna be no pitches in there. You'll just get some advice on like what I'm. The newsletter is about strategies, leadership, what I'm thinking about, what I'm seeing in the market. It's more just a straight give. And if you sign up for the newsletter and you like what I'm talking about, you want to schedule a one-on-one conversation to see if you'd be a great fit, awesome. That'd be great. But I'm looking to help leaders and entrepreneurs really just like I said, tackle problems in a way that they haven't seen before. I think it's really easy when you're a coach to look from a 10,000 foot view of someone's business and be like, I don't want this person to feel any more pain anymore. I want them just to achieve success. How do I remove roadblocks for Dan and for other people that they're having that feels like a 1,000 pound gorilla, but it really we just got to shift our strategy a little bit. So I love helping business owners get clear on what's not working and just remove that problem. So if you're a business owner or a leader and you're unsure if I'm the right fit for you, just sign up for my newsletter, hang out there, and see what we're talking about. And you can schedule a call with me if you want.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, thank you. Yeah,
Mm.
that's a great way to look at it. It's kind of like the same process there. You're really interested in the person to see if you can help them find out what their problem is and find out what they're interested in. So, yeah,
It's almost it's almost
just
like I planned it, right?
yeah. Yeah, no, that's just kind of like your whole style is just like figuring out how you could be helpful to others and figuring out
Yeah.
what the biggest, constraint is,
Mm,
and getting to know somebody to understand that.
mm.
So yeah, awesome stuff, Zach. Well, good luck on your Celtics the rest of the way. It's you guys have a great team, and yeah, just looking forward to just keep in touch with you and seeing, you watching the other. You have a podcast yourself? Because I know you're on you're on many podcasts, but
No, I stopped podcasting and I started writing a little bit more. For
okay.
me, it's more, I have a lot more alone time in the morning than I do in the evening. So I really like the art of writing. I've been writing for a long time. So for me, writing is a better medium to get out there. So I don't podcast as much as I write, and I enjoy that for now.
Nice. Well, yeah, another reason to sign up for your newsletter. But yeah,
Mm,
also following you on social media too, because
mm.
you've had some posts, really just really thought, you know, invoking posts that you've written. So yeah, definitely
Thank you.
understand that. Yeah, writing is a true skill that you have. So
Mm,
yeah, Zach, thank you again for your time. Really looking
mm,
forward to, really appreciate you, letting me keep in touch with you and
mm.
learning from you. So yeah, if you ever need anything from me, just let me know. But for now, just want to say thanks from the whole insurance agency community of the value that you brought over many years. So thanks again, Zach,
Thanks. Mm.
and
You're
looking
welcome.
forward
This
to
was fun.
keep in touch with you. Yeah, it was.
Absolutely. It's totally fun, man.
All
You
right.
do a great job with this, bud. That was really fun. That was a good time. You've done a lot of these.
Yeah. Over 70. Um,
It's awesome. Good for you. Good for you. It's, I mean, obviously it's like free mentorship for you. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like,
Yeah.
not that you necessarily need it, but I always look at podcasts in that way. It's like free coaching. So you're always going to learn something because someone has something to teach. And I think it's your choice to do something with it or not, but it's interesting, you know. But
Yeah.
but good stuff here, man.
And
You're good at it.
oh no, thank you. Yeah. If I want to learn something, then might as well, try to help other people learn too. But yeah, selfishly, I learned the most.
Yeah, I know. I understand that. You last thing I'll say, before I gotta fly. Do you see that Jason Tatum went down with an ankle injury? You see that
Oh, I
the other
saw.
day?
Is it pretty bad?
What I worry about with an ankle injury for a basketball hooper is like this guy's 6'8", 6'7", whatever. Like those ankles usually don't heal very fast. They don't like I don't think you'll see Jason Tatum take 3 to 4 weeks off, is what I'm saying. And I worry with the playoffs looming. Like, does he come in at 70%? That's a big factor. So
Well, good thing there's a
it, they,
pretty big cushion between second and third, right? So it's not like these games matter as much.
I hope they sit him for like 2 weeks. That's my hope.
Yeah.
Because he said it was no big deal. He said it was a typical sprain, but I don't know. It's like end of the season ankle sprains, they never turn out well. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
He
seen
might
it.
want
I've
to
seen
just
this
rest
story.
out some of the first round too, like at this point. You know,
I've seen this story play out. I know you have too. Where
yeah, it's
like
unfortunate because
after the season, like all of a sudden it's like, oh, Jason Tatum got ankle surgery. You're like, God damn.
yeah,
But I might be
I'm
being
sure that was
dramatic, but
a
I didn't like that.
a flagrant too, right? It had to be. That was
I wasn't watching. I was watching the college basketball stuff all weekend. I didn't
mm,
even really see it. Like I'm a bigger college basketball fan than I am an NBA fan. So I didn't realize the Celtics were playing. All of a sudden, I just got like an update on my phone. I was like, oh no. But I saw the replay. It didn't look good.
oh yeah.
Didn't look.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
not the planet.
and then the Celtics sold too. That's a whole nother story too. But yeah, crazy stuff going on. But yeah, I still think you guys are the favorites. I mean, the Cavs look great. They were in LA the other day, and we actually were able to beat them. But I just feel like with experience and stuff like that, maybe their time will come in a couple more years. But I'm pretty
They got
sure.
great guard play. Great guard play. Like Garland and Mitchell, they're so good. They don't lose very often at home either. That's a really good team. It's a
Yeah,
really good team. And on between them and the Thunder, I mean, you got some clear favorites, shall we say?
yeah,
We'll see what happens. But I mean, the NBA, the Celtics have to be the favorite just given that they're the past champions. But it'd be hard to say the Cavs can't beat them. They're so good. They're so good. But we'll see.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, the ankle is a big deal, so that's gonna be the deciding factor maybe. So yeah, good luck to
Yeah,
you guys. I mean,
we'll see.
yeah. NBA season is always fun to watch at this time of year. But yeah,
Yeah.
Zach, um, yeah, we'll go back and forth a little bit on
Yeah.
Instagram, see what you're up
Yeah.
to. But yeah, thanks again for, just your availability and
No,
yeah, everything you shared
no
today.
no doubt, man. Thanks for having me on. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All
All
right. Thanks
right.
again.
See you, bud.